This is gonna be by Propaganda Co. Trump maximum pressure on Iran is working. Let's see why it's working. Now, if you're new here, I just went ahead and explained the situation. It'll make a lot more sense if you understand that Trump has a lot of, has a huge amount of sanction on Iran. So, which is why he's saying that maximum pressure on Iran is working. I haven't seen this video yet, but let's see exactly what he means by that.
There has been a massive propaganda push to instigate regime change in Iran, and it's happening at a very dangerous moment when the world economy is already fragile, energy markets are volatile, and one major regional war could send global prices spiraling overnight. What we're watching isn't just unrest in Iran. We're watching the familiar buildup of a regime change narrative, the kind that's used to justify another catastrophic war in the Middle East. What started out as innocent and harmless protests by business owners demonstrating against rising inflation and the collapsing Iranian currency quickly devolved into violent riots that targeted police stations, military barracks, mosques, markets, banks, hospitals, and innocent civilians. As a result, several thousand people were killed. In response to that, Trump has sent an armada to the Gulf region. The USS Abraham Lincoln, with its 90 fighter jets and attack helicopters, along with an escort of missile cruisers, destroyers, and other accompanying vessels, has now arrived in the Gulf within striking range of Iran.
So now, this is going to remind me of what happened during the USSR Liberty, okay? So now with those ships in those areas, what if Israel pulls what it did during the USSR Liberty? With deception, thou shalt start war. What if that's what happened? What if now that the ships are near Iran, now, the reason why Israel attacked USSR Liberty, right, is simply to start a war with Egypt. It wanted America to start a war with Egypt. Cool. And guess what? Israel did it in unmarked planes, which is a war crime, by the way. So now that we know the vessels have not gone near Iran, what is going to prevent Israel from attacking one of those vessels in unmarked ship and blame it on Iran? Because right now, they need any excuse imaginable to attack Iran. Even though we knew that Mossad were among the Iranian causing havoc, Trump still went out of his way to say that if one protester dies, they're going to get involved. And guess what we understood? Mossad was gunning down people, giving Trump an excuse to attack Iran. Since that didn't happen, now that the vessel is near, guess what? Iran doesn't want war with America. But Israel wants America to attack Iran. So what excuse would there be? Let's keep going.
Says, we have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. And the Turkish foreign minister has said that there are signs Israel will attack Iran. Now, there are many questions that need answers. Is Iran really massacring protesters? Is Trump serious about attacking Iran? Is all of this for democracy and freedom, or is it just another imperial campaign of conquest on behalf of the United States and Israel? In this video, I'll take you through all the propaganda and reveal the truth about what this is really all about. On January 2nd, Trump tweeted a threat to Iran demanding that they don't kill any protesters. Quote, if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. This tweet revealed everything you need to know about the situation in Iran. I'll summarize it for you by reading one of my tweets that I posted to Propaganda & Co. on X. I've said this already, but this is why the Mossad-backed rioters have been so violent. They want to manufacture a narrative that triggers mass protests. Why? To justify aggressive involvement by the US and Israel. This is why Trump keeps posting about being with the protesters. They need people to die so they can make their move. They invented a red line, and they are manufacturing the crossing of it to create a pretext to flood Iran with weapons.
Just like how they also invented a yellow line in Gaza. Anybody who crosses the yellow line will get killed.
They need proxies on the ground to do the fighting, because the only alternative is a direct war, and they are finding it incredibly difficult to justify that war to the American public. The violent riots by the Mossad-backed provocateurs and the government crackdown that followed produced over 3,000 casualties. In response, millions of Iranians poured into the streets and demonstrated in support of the government. It became clear that the Mossad plan to instigate regime change from within had failed, but that hasn't stopped Western media from spreading absurd lies about the riots. This entire spectacle was a Zionist regime change operation designed to justify another war in the Middle East. Just take a look at this headline: worst daily massacre since the Holocaust. 24 hours of hell in Iran, over 16,000 killed.
So you see, this is the problem right here. Okay, worse. Okay. First of all, that number is it's not accurate. I'll tell you that right now. These people are trying to just boost as much envy and hatred in the hearts of people as much as possible. So of course they're gonna make up random ass numbers just to get people wild up. Number one. Number two, what happened in Gaza wasn't a massacre. That wasn't. In just 2 years, you telling me what? Over what? 500,000 people, let's just say. They're estimating that over 500,000 people have been killed. What, you telling me that all of those people were Hamas? Yeah, these people are inconsistent. This is why I just don't like the mainstream media, man. This is why I go to independent journalists like this guy.
Bold claim, and it isn't the only one. There are over 77 reports from media platforms pushing inflated casualty figures in Iran. I wonder why. CBS, for example, reported over 12,000 feared dead after Iran protests as videos show bodies lined up at the morgue. Now, it's obvious what's happening here. Western media is inflating the death toll and framing it as a massacre of innocent protesters in order to manufacture subconscious consent to make the average American emotionally accept a US and Israeli attack on Iran, even if they'd otherwise want nothing to do with another war in the Middle East. Now, luckily, people can see through these lies using tools like ground news. I use ground news to help research with this video, and it revealed just how propagandized this narrative was. Let me show you. As I mentioned earlier, ground news tracked 77 different articles agenda in the media coverage. Now, if we revisit this ridiculous published by Holocaust in Iran agenda in the media coverage. Now, if we revisit this ridiculous headline about a Holocaust in Iran, we can see that the article has low factuality, and it's published by Pamela Geller, a far right-wing Islamophobe and Jewish Zionist propagandist. Scrolling down, we can find another article by Fox News titled Iran accused of killing 16,500 in sweeping genocide crackdown. Ground News immediately reveals crucial information about this Fox News article. Firstly, that its factuality is mixed, which means you should take it with a massive grain of salt. And B, Fox News is owned by the Murdoch family, right-wing neocon warmongers who have spent decades beating the drums of war in the Middle East. Ground News also reveals something extremely important about how propaganda spreads online. If I hover over this icon, I can see that 4 other platforms are repeating the Fox News article as a source, spreading the headline even further through Google search results and social media feeds. As the saying goes, repeat a lie enough times and it becomes the truth. This tactic is exactly what Ground News just tracked and exposed in real time. So it's
now with that quote, repeat a lie enough and it becomes true. Is that in case there's no opposition? There's nobody going against what's going on? Because there's a lot of journalists out there, independent journalists, that are actually going against the grain. Although we have mainstream media today, people's trust in mainstream media is at all-time low. And I'm among those people. I don't like the mainstream media. That's number one. Number two, you got people like this who are actually showing you what's going on the ground, like people like Max Blumenthal. They're telling you, hey, this is what's going on. The mainstream media is lying to us. So yeah.
Abundantly clear to me that there is a propaganda campaign to justify another war in the Middle East, and that is what Ground News is built to expose. So I use Ground News because it makes these regime change operations impossible to hide behind. You literally see the information war in real time. So that's why I chose to partner with them, because if you're watching my channel, you're already someone who wants to see behind the veil of power and propaganda. So if you actually want to see through the information war,
All right, let's
to
get to
grasp
it.
advantage, and it's all became a platform for Mossad-backed agents to engage in destabilizing riots in Iran. You first need to understand just how bad the Iranian economy has become. On December 26th, 2025, an Al Jazeera headline read, quote, Iran's government budget reveals tough road ahead as currency hits new low. Prices of basic items like food are only expected to grow over the coming months as Iranians get poorer. 2 days later, Iranian business owners, trade unions, and the merchant class carried out mass demonstrations against rising inflation and the cost of living. Now, the economics of it all is complicated, but the explanation is actually quite simple. US sanctions have devastated the Iranian economy. In 2012, Iran's GDP was $644 billion. In 2025, Iran's GDP was only $350 billion. That is more than a 45% collapse in gross domestic product. Now, taking a quick look at this chart, you can track the changes in Iran's GDP over time. Warmongering neocons and Zionists were pressuring Barack Obama to go to war with Iran over its nuclear program. With the trauma of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars still fresh in the minds of everyday Americans, Obama knew he couldn't do that. So he decided to use another weapon of war: sanctions. In just 1 year, from 2012 to 2013, Iran's GDP plummeted by over $140 billion. This pressured Iran to engage in negotiations with the United States and other Western countries over its nuclear program.
So think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The people who are putting huge amount of sanction on Iran are the ones that are telling you that Iranians want to be free. The people who are telling other countries that if you do any business with Iran, you are going to get hit with a 25% tariff, are the same people who are telling you Iranian want to be free. The same people who send billions of dollars to Israel and billions of dollars worth of weapons to Israel to continue committing genocide on the Gazans are the same people that are now telling you that Iranian want to be free. You just have to look at this pattern, ladies and gentlemen, and understand that this war is not for the benefit of Iranians. Rather, this war is for our greatest ally, because our greatest ally in the Middle East knows that with Iran in that area, their greater goals of greater Israel will not be able to, they won't be able to achieve, but they have a bigger things in mind. Turkey is a power in which they are also afraid of. But right now, they want to do it piece by piece. They want to destabilize piece by piece.
Negotiations began in 2013 and were called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise known as the JCPOA. For 2 years, Iranian diplomats negotiated to scale back their nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. But all throughout the negotiations, Obama maintained the sanctions on Iran. So by 2015, Iran's GDP had shrunk another $90 billion. That same year, Iran and the US agreed to the JCPOA, much to the chagrin of the Zionists who wanted America to go to war and destroy the Islamic Republic instead. Benjamin Netanyahu humiliated Obama by flying to the US and speaking before Congress in an attempt to encourage lawmakers to sabotage the agreement. The deal went through anyway, and while the US didn't lift all the sanctions,
imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. The people who are welfare queen, taking money from the United States of America. Without America, they can't survive. The leader of that state is now coming to the United States of America and telling the leaders what to do. What? Oh my God, dude. Oh, see, this is why people are saying that America is controlled by Israel, bruh. Imagine that. Imagine him coming into the United States and then telling the Americans, I need more of your soldiers to go die for us. That's the conclusion of that. Not only am I going to take your money and usurp your money to where your citizens are not going to be living, they're not going to be living by their means. They have to get like multiple jobs in order for them to get more money. Not only are they going to usurp the wealth, now they're going to come and say, demand the president of the United States to send more troops to the Middle East so that way they can die for Israel. I mean, hey, again, everything is spelled out for us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not gonna lie to you, everything is just spelled out for us. This is ridiculous.
they did ease some of them against Iran. As a result, in 2016, Iran's GDP increased by 50 billion. In 2017, Iran's GDP increased another 30 billion. But this progress was short-lived. Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton and became president of the United States. Right. In May of 2018, Trump withdrew from the JCPOA at the behest of his Zionist masters and re-intensified sanctions against Iran. By the end of Trump's term in 2020, Iran's GDP had plummeted to just $260 billion. When Joe Biden came to office, he did not re-implement the JCPOA that his former partner Obama had negotiated. Instead, he reopened indirect negotiations to revisit the JCPOA and maintain sanctions where they were, neither raising nor reducing them. This gave Iran an opportunity to adapt to the sanctions, which helped them to increase their GDP to $435 billion by the end of the Biden administration in 2024. Then Trump returned to office and immediately intensified the sanctions again. His Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced U.S. sanctions would slash Iran's oil exports by 90%. In the first year of Trump's administration, Iran's GDP dropped by over $100 billion, back to just $350 billion. These sanctions have ravaged the Iranian economy. Just listen to Scott Bessent talk about the impact of these sanctions today.
There are Treasury sanctions, and if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked, because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired. Things are moving in a very positive way here.
Inflation.
Honestly, I'm starting to agree more with Vladimir Putin. Now, no, hear me out. Vladimir Putin said the only thing that the American people know, or should I say the only thing that Europe understand, is war. Okay? Iran is a country that doesn't want to get involved in war. It just wants to do business with its neighbor and just live in peace. I can see that, and just, rule the way they want to be ruled. That's it. I can see that. But with that being said, still, America puts sanctions on Iran. Still, America wants to go to war with Iran. Even though Iran joined the IAEA to make sure that they do not, they were inspecting to make sure they're not building nuclear bomb. And the IAEA came out and said, no, they're not building bomb. Still, despite all of that, despite them doing everything right, America still wants to go to war with Iran. That's the truth of the matter. Vladimir Putin said the only thing they understand is war. And that's why Vladimir Putin said that if war continue in Ukraine, they're going to resort to using nuclear bomb because this is the only language the Europeans understand. And based off of their action, based off of the way America has been acting all over the world, going down into South America and kidnapping the leader, Maduro, threatening to take over Greenland, sanctioning world, anybody who disagree with America, they go ahead and just put a huge amount of sanctions on them, attacking any small country that isn't bound knee to to Israel. Again, this is what they understand. It's war. I mean, it's a sad state to be in, to be quite honest with you, but the weapon manufacturing industry, they make a lot of money, and they're also in the ears of of presidents. They're telling president, we need you to go to war with this country. Why? Because this is going to put more money in their pocket. The more weapon America buys, the more money they get. The more contract America signs with weapon industry, the more money they get. War is profit. This is why America has been in war with different countries and different nations for over 200 years. Crazy.
Has plagued the Iranian currency known as the riyal, just as the inflation has hit much of the world. The difference, however, is that Iran is under intense sanctions that severely limit its ability to stabilize its currency using foreign reserves. And recent policy decisions by the Iranian government exacerbated the situation, sending inflation skyrocketing. The Iranian government responded by offering subsidies to help Iranians cover the costs of everyday necessities. But those subsidies also worsened inflation by injecting more cash from the central bank into the economy. And distributors took advantage of the subsidies by price gouging. The sanctions, coupled with poor economic policy, caused a 72% increase in food prices in less than 1 year. And the pressure isn't just on consumers struggling to buy food, it's on business owners as well. Every day, a producer or distributor sets prices in Iranian riyals, only to watch inflation rapidly change the value of the currency. That forces businesses to constantly recalculate profit margins and reprice goods just to stay afloat. With sanctions crushing crashing the currency and inflation rising almost daily, it has become nearly impossible to conduct business. And that is what prompted business owners to unite and take to the streets, demanding that the government properly address the crisis. The protests were very large, peaceful, and organized. The business owners
See, peaceful and organized. I don't know. Maybe that's because there was no Mossad among them. So it seemed like Iranians are capable of doing peaceful protests after all. I mean, when you look at the casualties and the buildings that were burned, yeah, it is Mossad and CIA is written all over it.
weren't demanding the fall of the government. They simply wanted this crisis addressed. The Iranian government responded immediately by replacing the head of the central bank and coordinating government policy to reduce inflation. Within just 2 days, Iran's president announced plans to accommodate the protesters' demands and serve the needs of the people, agreeing to implement 4 decisions to support merchants, shopkeepers, and unions. Now, this should have been the end of the protests, but in the midst of these demonstrations, agent provocateurs began infiltrating the protests, demanding the collapse of the government and urging others to engage in violence with them. Just take a look at this clip. An undercover rioter pretending to be a shopkeeper was confronted by peaceful protesters after he tried urging them to riot. They questioned him about the business he supposedly owned to see if he was a legitimate protester. When he couldn't answer basic questions, they tossed him out of the protests. And in this video, student protests were hijacked by 3 anti-government provocateurs who tried leading chants against the government. Students responded, however, by drowning them out with their own pro-government chants and waved the nation's flag instead. There are many videos like this from the early days of the protests showing that most demonstrators were uninterested in regime change and were only focused on inflation and consumer prices.
And this is what I've been saying. Well, I got it from other people, but this is what we've been saying. The Iranian, a lot of them don't have a problem with Khamenei. They don't. It's Israel that has a problem with him. That's it. That's all you need to know. And another thing you need to know is when the protest was happening, what's one of the foreign flag that was flying all over the place? It wasn't the US flag. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not see a single US flag. Maybe I didn't see all the protests. Maybe there was one somewhere. But there was a lot of Israeli flag. A lot of it. And that's all you need to know. And when you saw that little protest, the peaceful protest that just happened, did you see any flag? Even though these people were just trying to change the state of their economic, did you see any, not their flag, but Israeli flag or No, they don't have any problem with their leader.
Didn't stop Western media and politicians from weaponizing the narrative. Right-wing platform and influencer accounts like Visegrad began posting AI slop and outright fabrications to paint the picture of a massive uprising against the government. In this video, they used footage of normal everyday activity in Iran and dubbed fake audio over it to make it appear as if it were an anti-government protest. And here, the Israeli government digitally altered a video of police supposedly blasting a protester with a water cannon. In reality, however, the police lowered the water cannon and never touched the protester. And in this side-by-side, you can see a protest with fake dubbed audio of chants against the government calling for the return of the Shah. In the real video, however, there were no such chants. The entire Zionist propaganda network began amplifying lies advocating for regime change in Iran. But that wasn't the end of it. These agent provocateurs abandoned the shopkeeper protest during the day and began their own series of riots at night. They assaulted police officers, burned them alive, and beat them to death. They set fire to mosques, hospitals, markets, banks, and police stations. This is when the Iranian government began its crackdown. Several rioters were arrested and interrogated. It became clear that they had been instigated and directed by Mossad-linked operations. In this clip, you can see a Mossad agent giving explicit instructions to rioters on how to make Molotov cocktails, what to target, and how to handle police if arrested. Other interrogations revealed that Mossad agents used Instagram to contact young, poor, naive Iranians and offered them money to carry out attacks on the government and society at large. In another interrogation, a captured rioter said he was instructed by Mossad, quote, "If you can form a 6-person team, that would be very good, and you can command them yourself." He said their goal was to engage in project killing, so people would be affected and say, "They killed so-and-so, they killed a youth," and then pour into the streets for more protests. Once the crackdown began, Western politicians escalated the rhetoric and poured fuel onto the fire. Mike Pompeo tweeted, "The Iranian regime is in trouble. Bringing in mercenaries is its last best hope. Riots in dozens of cities, Mashhad, Tehran, Zahedan, next stop, Baluchistan. 47 years of this regime. Otis 47. Coincidence? Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. At the end, he tagged the CIA director Marco Rubio and President Trump. All of this confirms the following. While the Iranian government hasn't fully addressed inflation in an effective way, it is ultimately the external pressure of Western sanctions that has produced this economic crisis in Iran. The Iranian people were not protesting to overthrow the regime, but to demand action on inflation and the rising cost of living. The Islamic Republic is not an unhinged theocracy massacring protesters at will just to cling to power. It is a nation resisting repeated regime change attempts aimed at destroying both its government and its economy. The riots were instigated by the Mossad, as confirmed by Mike Pompeo, who foolishly let the cat out of the bag, and further supported by the confessions of rioters who were arrested and interrogated.
And here's my question. Why would they go out of their way to admit that? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Why did Mike Pompeo or any other high people in position, even in Israel, they were admitting it on their national television that yes, Mossad is among them. So why would they go out of the way to admit that if they want a regime change? Because Iranians are just gonna hear this and see this and be like, look, this is going to cause the Iranian people to surround themselves with the Iranian flag. You do realize that, right? I mean, you're not doing them any good at all. But
this is yet another attempt to manufacture a pretext for war against Iran, with the ultimate goal of opening its economy to Western corporations and installing a Zionist-aligned puppet regime to secure Israeli hegemony in the region. Now, if all of this isn't enough for you to believe that the Mossad were behind this, just listen to Israeli media admit it.
אני רואה שהם גם מאוד ממודרים, גם החומר יוצא יפה החוצה, זאת אומרת שהם קיבלו הדרכה. כנראה שיש פה הדרכה, אין מצב שזה טבעי, נטו לבד, וזה בסדר וזה לא פסול. ולכן יש פה איזה יד שבוחשת. אל תשכח שאיראן זה לאומים ועמים וכתות וקבוצות מהזרים לבלוצ'ים, לאחווזים, לערבים ולא ערבים, ולכן זה קר פתוח וקר מאוד מזמין לעבודה מודיעינית. אבל בסופו של דבר העם האיראני צריך לעשות את זה.
Now, in response to this regime change operation, Iran completely severed internet access. They did this for several reasons. Firstly, they wanted to cut off communication between the Mossad and their operatives on the ground. The moment the internet was shut down, the riots began to die down, further indicating that the Mossad was orchestrating much of this unrest behind the scenes. Secondly, they needed to prevent ordinary Iranians from developing the perception that the government was on the verge of collapse. There was a consistent theme echoed in Mike Pompeo's tweet and repeated by nearly every propagandist engaged in this information war against Iran. Quote, the Iranian regime is in trouble. For security forces to maintain order and for society at large to resist external regime change operations, people must believe the attack against them will fail. Sometimes all it takes for a government to collapse is for the population to stop believing in its ability to govern and maintain order. It doesn't matter whether that perception is objectively true. What matters is belief. By digitally altering images, dubbing audio, and spreading false claims about Holocaust, genocides, and imminent collapse, Western forces were trying to convince Iranians that resisting was pointless and that surrender was inevitable. Iran cut the internet to prevent that false perception from spreading across the country. Geopolitical analyst Brian Berletic recently produced a video arguing that protecting your information space is just as important as defending your airspace or your economy. Quote, Iran, a nation with significant conventional military power, has been undermined and weakened because of its delay in securing its information space, and thus political space sufficiently from foreign interference. And while it has acted decisively in recent weeks and appears to have prepared at least months in advance, only time will tell if it is just in time or still too late. It seems Iran now understands the importance of this because it no longer hesitates to cut the internet during times of conflict. But Iran went beyond simply shutting down the internet. It appears that both Iran and the Mossad had anticipated the blackout. The Mossad responded by flooding thousands of Starlink receivers into Iran so its agents could still access the internet through Elon Musk's satellite system. Iran appears to have anticipated this move and jammed the Starlink connection. Now, it's unclear exactly how they did it, but there is speculation that China may have assisted. A J-Feed article
I thought it was Russia. I thought it was Russia that was the one that helped them actually cut the internet, but I guess I was wrong. Sorry about that.
Article wrote, quote, breaking the myth of unblockable satellite internet, Tehran utilizes synchronized ground jammers to blind 40,000 terminals, effectively turning the country into a laboratory for Beijing's future war over Taiwan. With virtually all connection to the outside world severed, Iran was able to cut off communication between the Mossad and its agents and bring the regime change operation to an end. Once it became clear that this plan had failed, Trump tweeted that he had decided not to attack Iran because they had decided not to hang the protesters. I greatly respect the fact that all scheduled hangings, which were to take place yesterday, over 800 of them, have been canceled by the leadership of Iran. Thank you, Trump wrote on his Truth Social network. Now, he tweeted this because he knew that the operation had failed, so it wasn't a good idea to get further involved because Trump is looking for an easy win, not a PR disaster. Now, just because this regime change operation failed, it doesn't mean that it's over yet. Trump ordered the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln to sail west from Indonesia toward the Gulf region. On January 18th, the ship passed through the Strait of Malacca. At its speed, it is likely already within the operational area. Carrier is accompanied by several destroyers. That places at least 90 fighter jets within striking range of Iran, not including the many US aircraft already stationed in the region. On January 16th, the Warzone founder Tyler Rogaway posted, there are not enough assets in the Middle East to execute a sustained campaign that will accomplish anything of huge consequence in Iran. He explained that the US would need to build up resources and that this would take time. According to open source reporting tracking the US movement of US military aircraft, a buildup of air assets in the Middle East for a possible strike on Iran has already begun. Dozens of F-15s were reportedly redeployed to Muwaffaq Saltai Air Base in Jordan. Per OSINT Technical, there are now 35 F-15s in Jordan, along with tanker aircraft and C-17 flights supporting the deployment. A Chinese satellite image also recently confirmed dozens of F-15s at this Jordanian airbase. More and more US military equipment is being delivered to the region, 12 flights in the past 36 hours. Interestingly, most C-17s are landing at Muwaffaq Saltai airbase in Jordan, which would likely serve as a major launch point for an attack on Iran and for defending Israel. There are also reports that airlines are canceling flights to Israel. The Russian government has advised its citizens not to travel to Iran. Now, it's impossible to predict what will happen next. Iran has demonstrated that it can strike targets in Israel and across the region with power and accuracy. Yet that hasn't deterred Israel or the United States from threatening Iran or attempting regime change operations against it. So it is abundantly clear that Zionist hardliners are hell-bent on war with Iran, and they are desperately trying to drag the United States into doing their dirty work for them. So at this point, it isn't a matter of if, but when. The riots, the sanctions, the 12-day war, the assassinations, all of it has been planned for years by the US and Israel, and it is now being executed in real time. I've covered these plans extensively in previous videos, including Israel's use of anti-Iran proxies, leaked Pentagon plans for war with Iran, including the potential use of a nuclear weapon, and how the 12-day war unfolded. Now, if you want to watch these videos, I've put together an Iran playlist for you on my channel. If you dedicate an hour and a half, you'll become a semi-expert on US-Israel-Iran relations. The link to that playlist is in the description of this video. So what do you think? Are we on the cusp of a final battle between Iran, Israel, and the United States? Will Iran survive? Will they build a nuclear weapon? Will they shut down the Strait of Hormuz or strike energy infrastructure across the region? Let me know what you think in the comment section. And remember, if you want to support my channel and get 40% off the Vantage plan, go to groundnews.com/prop or scan the QR code on screen. The link is in the description of this video, and it is also...
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, based off of what we just learned, okay, they have been trying to go to war with Iran for God knows how long now. And we are at the, at the breaking point. We're at that point now where Donald Trump is most likely going to go ahead and strike because, U.S. vessels are in striking range. And one thing that I did want to say is the fact that Jordan allowed, planes to land at their airbase to get ready to attack your own brother. I mean, seriously, your own brothers? Jordan, isn't that a Muslim country? Aren't you guys Muslim? Because Iranians are Muslim. So now Jordan is going to go ahead and help the United States and Israel to attack their brother.